2020, brought to you by EduDev School of Inspired Teaching and Learning in association with Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham University. My name is Meenu Chopra. I accord a very warm welcome to everyone. Today's topic for discussion, formalizing elementary education, is a pertinent one as it aims at building a solid and broad foundation for lifelong learning and well-being. Early childhood care and education reinforces UNESCO's Sustainable Development Goal 4, but that is by 2030 to ensure that all girls and boys have access to quality childhood development, care, and pre-primary education so that they are ready for primary education. I take this opportunity to introduce the illustrious panelists who are luminaries from the field of education. Our first panelist, Mrs. Shwetangana Santram, is the principal at Wilsonia Group based in Moradabad, Uttar Pradesh. Considering that the pre-primary section of the institution is the most important, Ms. Santram has been keenly involved with developing and designing the curriculum and refining teaching learning processes. She believes that we need a revolution in our education system, and creativity in pedagogy is the main ingredient to usher in this change. We are honored to have you on board. Welcome, Mrs. Santram. Our next panelist is Dr. Vinata Sai, who is the Chairperson, Science and Humanities School of Engineering, Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham, Chennai campus. A passionate educator, Dr. Vinata Sai acknowledges the need for embracing change in accordance with the times. A staunch believer in ancient Indian knowledge systems, she is hopeful that NEP 2020 will bolster educational development in the country. It is her constant endeavor to learn and be a better teacher. We are privileged to welcome you, Dr. Vinata Sai.
Thank you so much.
We now welcome Mrs. Srishti Bajaj, Headmistress, GD Goenka Public School, Sector 48, Gurugram. She is a proficient facilitator. Her professional interests center around the incorporation of powerful dynamics in learning practices in classrooms and beyond. Her extensive contributions to promote a deeper connect between the learners and teachers and her abiding belief in sustaining democracy in classrooms and school reflects in all her endeavors. She believes that education based on respecting children and enabling them to become happy will be the driving force for the social change. A warm welcome to you, Mrs. Bajaj.
Thank you so much for having me.
I welcome the moderator for the session, Mrs. Devyani Kapoor. Mrs. Kapoor is an educator, an author, and a thought leader. She is the founder and CEO of EduDevs, the School of Inspired Teaching and Learning. An ex-principal, she carries over 30 years of experience with her in education sector and has worked with key brands in the educational industry. She is credited with introduction of a number of innovative pedagogical techniques for effective classroom management, quality circle time, lesson planning, experiential learning, student empowerment techniques, and teacher training. A warm welcome to you, Mrs. Kapoor. I now hand over the stage to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Meenu, for such an illustrious introduction of all the panelists and myself. Really, thank you. Today, I'm especially excited to be moderating an extremely powerful panel of three very dynamic women who are accomplished in their own areas of activity. They are the industry experts, and hence they are here. A heartfelt welcome to all our esteemed panelists. You see, the Indian government with its national education policy, which is a stated fact, it aims to have an education system that ensures quality, equitable access to the highest quality education. More important, for all the learners, regardless of social and economic background, and hence aligns it with the Sustainable Developmental Goal 4. To achieve this, and not to regret later, actions must be taken now, and with a lot of urgency. It is with this aim in mind that EduDay's School of Inspired Teaching and Learning, in collaboration with Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham, took upon themselves the task of decoding a Herculean document like National Education Policy and set on a journey to educate all the stakeholders about what the policy expects of each of us, which are the greatest challenges, and trying to bring the best brains and industry experts to deliberate upon a roadmap which would help us effectively implement the same. And we may not regret later that we missed the bus. Today's session is a continuation of the last session, which was formalizing the early childhood education. We deliberated upon the significance of early childhood, which is a period from birth to age group of 8 years. We understand that it is a critical period where researchers have proved that about 90% of the brain development occurs in this period of time. The government realized the potential of intervening during early childhood is very important, and hence the policymakers did not neglect it and rather gave it a center stage in the national education policy. The policy, if we look at from the top, inaugurated with a lot of structural reforms where it has shifted the 10+2 system to a 5+3+3+4 and expanded the age limit of education from 6 to 3 to 18 years. Now, so transformational change is what we all are looking at and what the policy hopes to bring in. As our Prime Minister rightly said, and I often quote this because I genuinely believe he hopes to create India a vibrant, knowledgeable hub. So without much ado and not trying to spill the beans, let's just twist the spotlight on our esteemed panelists and begin the session. As always, we would be having 3 rounds. First, the ice-breaking round. The same question is passed on to all our panelists. Then a specialized discussion with each panelist. And the last but not the least, and our most important round is the Q&A session where the audience want to know and they address their queries to the panelists. Coming to our ice-breaking question, and it will be in the order of Ms. Shwetangana Sandra, then Dr. Sai, and then Ms. Srishti Bajaj. I would request you to please adhere to 2 minutes or 2.5 minutes for your answer because there is a lot which lies in the coming segments. We all know that medium of instruction is the most critical component of learning and teaching as well. It's been proved that children create their own world and understand it best in their mother tongue. According to the National Education Policy, the aim of instruction is understanding and definitely not rote memorization, which it's trying to eliminate. Therefore, the emphasis is on learning through a bilingual approach wherever possible. The policy encourages local languages to be the medium of instruction, we all know. What is your perspective on this bilingual approach to the early years of education? Over to you, Ms. Sandra.
Thank you so much, Devyani Kapoor and EduDev. It's a pleasure to be here with all this lovely, distinguished panel. And as we just have 2.5 minutes, so I'm not going to go much into any of the other things. See, as you rightly said, that the early childhood care that has been, put on literally the center stage by this national policy, which was definitely missing, and that is a wonderful step forward, no doubt about it. But medium of instruction, when we are talking about, we have to firstly understand that what is our aim. By that, what I'm trying to say is that we have always taken pride in the fact that India is a nation which has always been able to create a mass of youth, employable youth, which is fluent in English. So we cannot really run away from that very fact that, English will remain and has to be a prime language. At the end of the day, today, we are also talking in English. We are doing a webinar in India, but we are talking in English, all of us. So English does come in the center stage. But having said that, I personally feel that the concept that the national policy has used the word whenever possible is actually the point which needs to be underlined, because that is where the policy makers have actually left it to the creative teacher. That, at the end of the day, the aim is understanding and not rote learning. So please ensure that the child understands the concept. So if to make the child understand the concept, you need to divert and move to the bilingual or the local language, you please go ahead and do that. If you need to use some local examples, please do that, because there are going to be certain things which are demographically, geographically, culturally very, very diverse in our country. So, you can't use the same example that is probably there in a textbook, which a child might comprehend sitting in, let's say in Hyderabad, and somebody sitting in West Bengal and somebody sitting in the J&K. They might not comprehend that same example in equality, and they might not be able to get it. So at times the teacher will have to move to that bilingual language. That is one thing that I'd like to say. Secondly, when we say about that, that the national policy has not much talked about the fact that, what will be those languages and how the textbooks are going to be created. I somehow feel that, that is not, that's something which a lot of people have been questioning, that, are they really going to make books in all the languages? That in a nation like ours, where we have 22 official languages and I don't know how many dialects, that is not really going to be possible. But at the end of the day, the onus is going to be eventually on the teachers, that you please have something which looks more in terms like a sandwich method, that you have one particular language which is going to be the main one. If it's a state board or a school, it can be the state language. If it is a CBSE, ISC, IB school, there naturally English is the main language. But you have the freedom to move to your local language to ensure that understanding, because that is something which the national policy continuously emphasizes. Understanding has to be above rote learning. So till we make the child understand, we cannot move away from the rote learning aspect of it. So that is what I would say, that is where the teacher will have to be creative, and you understand where to use the local language and where to go by the language which is required for the child to understand.
Very well said. Thank you very much, Ms. Santram, because the bottom line is understanding the concept, no matter what via media we take, and we need to eliminate rote learning. So I think, and I love the sandwich method technique which you have offered, and I'm sure our viewers, especially the educators, will take a note of it. Over to you, Dr. Sai. Now let's hear Dr. Sai out on what the medium of instruction should be. Dr. Sai?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
I'm sorry.
No, no problem.
Okay, so good evening to everybody. First of all, thank you for being here. And now, NEP has clearly stated that wherever possible, we can have the mother tongue also as a medium of instruction. Now, I mean, lot has been said about this, right from the UN body, UNESCO, and various other theories are there wherein it has been stressed that learning through mother tongue or in the child's mother tongue, helps develop critical skills, thinking skills, and not only that, it helps in the retention also. So, and they feel comfortable about it when they do it in their mother tongue. So this kind of, but then the problem there is that ours is a very multicultural, multilingual country. Of course, 22 scheduled languages, but then we have at least about 270 other languages, recognized mother tongues apart from these. But the simple thing is that 96% of the population speak these 22 languages. So now let us talk about the present condition. The distractions are many for youngsters. We know about kids. We know how hard-pressed parents are. Both of them are working. So, they may not have much time, to spend with children. Earlier, we had grandparents telling children, stories in their mother tongues. So I think that is one missing factor. Today, of course, you have Audible and other things, but then you had somebody at home who would tell, the parents would tell, or somebody, usually the grandparents, giving. So you had moral instruction, so linguistic instruction, along with that. So the cultural values were there, and you also learned about life skills. So everything was there, all together it was. So so that I think is missing today. So we need to address that. So teachers, parents, community, we all have to get together, bring back, we all grew up on a dose of Chandamama, Amar Chitrakatha, the Jataka tales, Panchatantra and all that. So these, wherever possible, the parents can be involved, the linguistic, the community itself can be involved in the classroom. They could have plays, they could have songs, so these kind of, when you interweave these things into the classroom with the, influence of the mother tongue, I think it becomes more, what should I say? I mean, it is kind of, it clearly etched in the minds of the young children. We are talking about age 6 onwards, right? So that is the formal education. So that is when it starts. So the pre-primary, and it's so nice exactly to have these under the formal structure. I think that's one other kudos to the government for formalizing it, bringing that into the umbrella of, formalized education. So mother tongue, all said and done, gives children, a kind of confidence. It builds their confidence. So any kind of skill, it can be numerical skills or it can be linguistic, anything. I think it can be, the mode of instruction. Of course, the lingua franca usually happens to be Hindi or English, Hindi upwards, north upwards, eastern side, Bengali maybe, south English is there. So whatever it is, you can have that as well as the mother tongue. So I think this kind of the bilingual or multilingual approach enhances the capacity of students. It will bring out the best in them. This will also set, these are the foundational years for children. And as you already mentioned rightly, so the brain, of course, the growth happens maximum during this young childhood age, young childhood. So these early years. So I think at that point of time, when we are introducing these things, it is going to pave the way for them to think, we are talking about, today it's going away from rote learning. Okay, so I think it would set the trend in them to think critically, to think confidently, before the others. They need not feel shy, no inhibitions whatsoever. So that again, so experiential kind of education, all that, I think with the mother tongue, all this is given a fillip, I would say.
Right. Thank you so much for your insights. And yes, I completely resonate your thoughts that, in mother tongue, the child creates his own world. The retention is better because the child is very familiar with all the ideas, the words that he creates. And once the child learns how to learn, then the learning becomes easy. So yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Sai. And let's hear out what Ms. Srishti Bajaj has to say, because she is actually sitting at a point where she's only dealing with that age group of students. So yes, Srishti, yes, let's hear you out.
A very good evening, first of all, to everyone. I think I'm going to basically sum up what the other two panelists said. I would be more or less reiterating the same fact, though most of the researchers, they have concluded that learning achievement is enhanced when the children are taught in their mother tongue for at least the first 6 years of school. So before the second language, the main language of instruction is introduced. But on the other hand, bilingual or multilingual education has been found to increase a student's self-confidence and self-esteem. This is what the UNESCO study done in 2016 says. So in a bilingual model, students continue to use both the mother tongue and second language as the languages of instruction for a range of the academic subjects throughout the primary and the secondary. Because if there has to be a sudden transition from mother tongue to the second language, if it is too rapid, then the risk is that the students will not attain full mastery of either of the language. So the mother tongue based bilingual education, the use of the child's mother tongue alongside the second language is now the recommended strategy. Was what the NEP is also stressing upon. Just take the case of, because we are in Gurgaon and we are dealing with a set of, parents who are in transferable job. Just think about a student whose parents are in a transferable job. He would face a serious issue adapting to the local language every time they make a move. So just think from that child's perspective. So while many countries may have the national language policy that supports the use of the local languages, but such policies, I would say, are more on paper and not always implemented in the actual classroom. So comprehensive language planning actually requires an in-depth situational analysis of the socio-linguistic and the educational context of the community. So it depends on a lot of factors, I would say. But yes, the bilingual or the multilingual approach, taking both the languages along, when the children come to us in nursery, and when the teacher is giving an instruction in English and she looks at the faces of the children, if she sees that there is a blank expression, she would quickly switch over to Hindi, to make it more understandable. So the teachers have to, as rightly pointed out by Ms. Shwetangana and Dr. Sai also, so the teacher has to look at the responses of the students. And the point is that they must understand the content or whatever is being communicated to the children. So that is the whole point. The teacher will have to use a lot of her intelligence, a lot of her gut feeling, and a lot of her common sense, and look at the expressions and the responses of the children. So definitely multilingual or bilingual, so to say. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Bajaj. I think you have encapsulated the concept so beautifully with saying that mother tongue based bilingual methodology should be, and you actually said, because I think this was the most beautiful example, live example, which you said that we also need to, in a place like probably Gurgaon or any of those cosmopolitan cities where the children come from various backgrounds. So the task of the teacher becomes very, very challenging. And very quickly, I want to just comment here that when I was into teaching, and I would often hear parents coming to me and telling them that हमारा बच्चा English में नहीं बोल पाता है, ma'am English. And there was so much of pressure, without naming any school, there was so much of pressure from the authorities that, you need to make the children speak in English. It is so not done. It is so criminal. So a tip to all the parents who are hearing that, please don't rush the child to speak in English. Let them understand the way learning happens, and then I think there is no looking back. Thank you so much, and I think our ice-breaking round was excellent, beautifully. Coming back to our specialized round, now the order would be same. First question addressed to Ms. Shwetangana Santra. Yeah, to you, we see that there is a lot of buzz about foundational literacy. And, suddenly this word foundational literacy and numeracy have come up, and they have become trending words. And we do understand that foundational literacy which is also known as your foundational learning, is actually the ability to read and write and perform some basic arithmetic operations. I think that in a nutshell, we all know it means. Now, what do you think, and how do you see this continuum is going to, shift? Because we have the Anganwadis, we have the preschools, where children spend about 2 years. And so how this transition is going to seamlessly happen? Would it mean that suddenly including the early childhood, because we have formalized now for the first time the early childhood education into a formal structure, suddenly would there be a lot of curriculum pushed on the child which needs to be gouged? How do you think this kind of a seamless transition from Anganwadi preschools to grade 1 and 2 would happen? And what are the recommendations also, I would say, of the policymakers? What does the policy say about how to operationalize in terms of provision, in terms of approach, what curriculum? I mean, how are you planning it in your school? Yes.
Okay. Thanks. It's a very, very pertinent question, something which I think a lot of us are already thinking about. And as you said, I just hope and pray that that doesn't happen when you said that they want to put in too much curriculum on the kids, because that unfortunately seems to be a solution for everything that we want to find, that let's make a very, very structured curriculum, and then this is it, and just need to move from point A to point B, and that is how the children need to be taught. But as you rightly pointed out just now, Devyani, that we have a very, very diverse structure in place already. We have, like you said, Anganwadis. We have had standalone play schools, and children came to a lot of the schools. Of course, formal schools did have a provision for a pre-primary section, but still a lot of parents and a lot of places, the formal school definitely did start from grade 1, and even schools would think about at what structure to follow, what curriculum to follow. The boards were also just giving you out a structured right only from grade 1 onwards. It was not really there for how you are to deal, and that is why everyone was actually doing it as per their own perception, as per their own need and demand. It was basically a demand and supply sort of a situation, I would say, that was there, because if in Anganwadi you had a certain kind of children coming, the teacher there, based on her or his capability, was teaching them, keeping that in mind. A play school was doing what they felt that their parents really demanded of them, and they were, everybody was doing their own thing. And now, as you've said, that it is going to be formalized. So yes, we will require a structure. There is no doubt about that. There is going to be a structure. The policy also is talking in terms of that we have a uniform testing to be done at the level of grade 3, so that we can have some kind of, check on have the children attained a certain foundational literacy and numeracy, as we are talking the trending words of today, that they have reached that stage or not. But my worry at the end of the day is that as Dr. Sai also said, we are just such a diverse nation that to have a uniform check, how effective is that going to be? Because at the end of the day, the entire, the children are coming from various cultural beliefs. They're coming from different regions. They are coming from different states. Education, if I'm correct, is a state jurisdiction. It is not a centralized jurisdiction. So every state has their own, value system which they want that their children should attain. So fine, maybe if you test the children at the level of the state, that is probably okay because they would have a certain structure. But then when you have schools and educational institutions which are over above that, by that what I mean is that they are affiliated to boards which are, centralized. And now you have CBSE schools, you have ISC schools, you have IB schools, which are all over the country. Now, if let's take an example, if Maharashtra is going to do a test at grade 3 level, and they're going to try to test the children. Now, how do they test the children who are studying in the Maharashtra board schools at par with the child who is in an IB or an ISC or a CBSE school in Maharashtra? Because that school is definitely following the structure given to them by the board, and the state board school is following the structure provided to them by the state. So somewhere the implementation of that testing is where, I am not very confident about how we are planning to achieve that. That is where I am a little, skeptic, I would say. But having said that, I totally and firmly believe that we do need it. We do need to have a stage by stage, some methodology in place where we can see that whether the children of our country are being able to reach the required attainment of knowledge is there or not. We have to have that because there are times, and maybe what we talked in the ice-breaking section, that maybe if we start using the bilingual and the mother tongue, maybe that is going to enhance that level of knowledge and information and education, because a lot of times children are falling back simply because they are pressurized into learning with that one language, which they are not comfortable with. So maybe if we have that holistic approach given to the child, that yes, please understand the concept. And then maybe when we have the level of testing, the child has the freedom that, you can maybe probably, express your knowledge or tell us the knowledge in your comfortable language. Because if I may just say, though we are moving a little away, CBSE allows you to do the class 10 and class 12 exam also in Hindi. So there is, why can't we do the testing in those languages also? Because at the end of the day, we will be testing their knowledge and not just the level of, whether they know the language or not. If we can have that flexibility, I think that would be great. And for what you said about what does the policy say about it, I think the policy has made it very clear that we are not going to be just testing and assessing at any level the children only for whether they have understood, it is not going to be assessment only for the subject. It is going to be assessment in the subject, assessment of the subject, for the subject, and for learning. Assessment for learning is what is going to be the most important aspect. So if, again, coming down to if the implementation happens in the way that we want it, and that will be the onus of the teachers, how well we prepare our teachers. And I think Dr. Sai and Ma'am Bajaj will agree with me that unfortunately the teachers of ECCE level are probably the most, neglected section of a school at times, if I may say that. They are, really, undermined. We are sometimes, schools are not even much bothered about, what are their qualifications, okay, fine, if you can teach a little child, please come in and start teaching. Whereas I personally feel that that is one level where the teacher needs to be the best. You need to have your best teachers in your pre-primary. I think then everything is taken care of. Everything will be taken care of if that happens. So that change we brought in. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I think you very well reiterated this. The only thing that I want to comment here is, and then that, in the whole country, if you look at the scenario, there are two extremes. That one is the urban areas where the play schools, have the curriculum, and they try to fetch in the curriculum of grade 1 and 2 as well in some schools. Whereas in Anganwadis, there is very informal, and very rightly you said, we really need to invest our time, energy, resources on the training of educators of elementary schools, because that is where the whole problem, or that is where the whole journey of the child begins. So we have Anganwadis on the other level where there is no structure. It ranges between folk tales and folk songs or some kind of a thing. That definitely is going to be a challenge. But yes, if we have a structured curriculum, which, as you said, that it is not about assessment, it is about learning in the subject and learning or for the subject. That is the whole idea. And we should not pay too much of attention on the assessing the child, whether the pre-primary child has mastered. It should be understanding of the concept. We will come back to this more, and we'll have more of your insights. Moving on to Dr. Sai. Now, the policy also talks a lot about the 3 R's: reading, writing, and arithmetic. We understand, and it's an established fact, that improved literacy can contribute to economic growth, reduce poverty, all these things, crime, make children better. But doesn't this align too much with targeting our SDG 4, which is a target to achieve by 2030? And actually, this becomes a cause of worry, because they think that the currently informal nature of your ECE may give way to education that would just revolve around the 3 R's and would just cater to and especially in areas, I'm not talking about the 2% of progressive or public schools, but by and large. So, and this becomes a very big question, that somewhere would it not be, on one side we are talking about the pedagogical approaches, there's so much of emphasis, play, way, technique, experiential learning, and suddenly the policy also talks about the 3 R's. So is it correct to stress on reading, writing, arithmetic at such a young age? Yes, Dr. Sai.
Okay. Now, it's not a walk in the park. I mean, whatever has been said in the NEP, it's going to be very difficult. In fact, just to the previous question, just one thing, it's not even about, we were very rightly talking about transferable jobs and all that, but sometimes even within a household, we have the mother talking a different language, the father talking a different language. So within a household itself, there is this bilingual. So we can imagine what the classroom is going to be. And thank you, Ms. Shwetangana rightly said, yes, I think we need to give them their due, the teachers, because that is the level where I think they are, these impressionable young minds, to shape them at that level is most important. Yes, thank you for bringing that. Okay, now to the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic. Okay, so I would say that, it could be balanced in the sense that that also could be done in a very fun sort of learning. So why not? Because that is the age when they can imbibe the most. I mean, they can take in a lot. So if they can do that, so reading also can be done in a fun manner. It need not be thrust upon them, or I hope you can get that. So it could be writing, yes, maybe, there you have to make them sit and do certain things. So I think all this, a lot of onus is on, the policymakers as well as the implementation. So how they are going to make it interesting, how to make it creative. So that creative aspect is what will induce children, to gravitate towards these 3 R's. So if it is going to be something to their interest, to their liking, I would say, then definitely it is not something, a matter of force there. So I mean, and mathematical skills, well, Indians are known for their numeracy skills, and I think it's very important. So, okay, I don't know. Okay. Yes, but by and large, all over the world, of course, today, if you look at the math Olympiads, of course, China has been walking away. That's a different thing. But by and large, we are good at it. We have been good at it, whatever. Okay. So I think it is important. I think I don't know. I feel that it is right. The only thing is, let us not make it a rigmarole or, make it force it upon them in a particular fashion or anything. It should be done that, as you mentioned, that playway method and all that, so experiential. So I think in that itself, I mean, you can show them some story and then we can ask them, oh, why don't you read a portion of it or something like that? Or you could have it, somebody could come and act it out or something like that. So, and then they could read parts of it, not necessarily in class, maybe, they could have time at home or some at their leisurely hour, they could do it, I think. So I think it's fine to kind of slowly introduce reading, writing and arithmetic, at that age. But then not too much of, I mean, as you said earlier, I don't think we should go about evaluating those skills and saying that, one has to get so much to go on, proceed to the next level or something like that. So it also has to happen in the same method wherein it is creative, where it gives a lot of fun for the children, to do these things. So I think if it is done with that aim in mind, I'm sure that children would be ready to, grasp these things, because that age, I think nothing is beyond their grasp, so to say. And they can.
I mean, actually, because in the last episode, we were actually debating upon certain myths that exist at the stage in the pre-primary and elementary stage, that, is it that the child needs to develop his motor skills and start the writing skills first or the reading skills later? The only thing is that, and I would want you to just comment on this, that two things. One, formalizing education right from the pre-primary level, and two, the SDG goals of, the goal 4, looming large by 2030. There is little apprehension that, this might not club and, the children for whom we picked up this and incorporated the elementary education, they might not be at the disadvantage, or this might not backfire, because reading, writing is important, but then at the end of the day, the child needs to understand what learning is all about and learn how to learn. That is something which I feel is so. Yes.
So SDH 2030, yeah. I thought you wanted me to comment.
No, yes, I want you to comment on this. Okay. Yes.
So SDH 2030, yes, the whole world is, gravitating towards that. As you say, well, I think even now they have been kind of doing this, it's only that you're giving that kind of, you're bringing it under a structure of NEP and trying to do this. So according to me, I think it is manageable, and at least we can try it, is what I feel. Yes, but then, as I told you, that should not the be all and the end all. Yes, so we can try that. Yes, and I think they may succeed also, the teachers, in making them read or in making them write. Definitely, we are not going to have very high targets there. So what little they can do, the children, I think, if it is going to be with fun, with a lot of activity, I'm sure this can be done.
So I'm sure a lot of flexibility has to be given in the hands of the educators, as an orange is not equal to an apple. So the educator needs to, intervene as to what kind of pedagogical approach she's trying to adapt to. Moving on to Ms. Bajaj. Okay, so since we know that Ms. Srishti Bajaj is an headmistress of one of very esteemed schools. It's a public school, and children of very good families and a good social background come to that school. But now the question is a little different to you, Ms. Bajaj. We see that India faces a big problem, as I just mentioned, that there are these two extremes in the country. On the one hand, the major chunk is students on Anganwadis, where we have also cases of dropout rates are very high, and they come into the formal sector. And it has been estimated that most of the children don't even know and understand the basic numeracy and literacy skills are lacking when they move on to even testing as done in class 3. There is another segment, the kind of students which you cater to, which come from good play schools, which already have a good command. They can even directly sit in probably a class 1 and get away with the curriculum. In principle, the foundational stage will consist of 5 years with flexibility, multi-level physical activity, as I'm talking about. And the curriculum and pedagogy of ECC will also begin to, then incorporate some textbooks will be introduced, though they were, as Dr. Sai rightly said, that it's not that it's suddenly something new has come to us. We were having these textbooks. Would it, but still, this again coming back to the same, and I think taking a different perspective from each one of you, would it not be detrimental for children if the prevalent skill-based literacy education and evaluation of the primary schools is brought down to the preschool? Because we can't forget that we have been put under a formal structure. Preschool comes under a formal structure. So what would be the assessing mode? And if then it is not a conflicting ideology? Yes, Ms. Bajaj, to you.
Yeah, sure, Devyani. I will just take it up step by step.
Yeah.
So on one hand, we are talking about universal high quality education, because that is probably the best way forward, because India would over the next decade is going to have the highest population of young people in the world. So our ability to provide the high quality education opportunities to all will determine the future of our country, right? So we have to work towards it now, and standardization is the need of the hour. Undertaking the major reforms that bring the highest quality, equity, integrity into the system, right from early childhood care and education through the higher education. So the policy rightly proposes the revision and revamping of all the aspects of the education structure. And I believe textbooks are an integral part of it. They are not separate from it. So though the teacher has to be at the center of the fundamental reforms in the education system, the new education policy must re-establish the teachers while also instilling in the system the basic methods of quality control and accountability. So where will the quality control come from? Where will the accountability come from? So there has to be some synergy in the curriculum across all levels of education, right from early childhood care and education through the high school and everything. So there has to be a light but a tight regulatory framework, I would say, to ensure integrity and resource efficiency. And who's stopping the educational system to empower the educators so that they are encouraged to continue to innovate and think out of the box. So, a base is given through the textbooks, and sky is the limit. You can actually, now they're saying there is no box, think out of the box and you can come up with highest level of creativity and innovation. Who's stopping you to do that? So the foundational literacy and numeracy, which is the urgent and the necessary prerequisite to learning. There was a recent survey done, and it was estimated that almost about 5 crores of children currently in the elementary school, they have not even attained the basic foundational literacy and numeracy. That is the ability to read and comprehend the text, and the ability to carry out the basic operations like simple addition and subtraction, with numerals. So the textbooks here will define the minimum learning that our students need to achieve at a certain given level. And also the policy talks about ensuring that all students are school ready. So they're talking about an interim, 3-month play-based school preparation module for all the grade 1 students, which will consist of the activities, workbooks around learning the sounds, words, numbers. So that is being already developed by NCERT, and most of it is already there. The process has already begun, and a national repository of a high quality resource on foundational literacy and numeracy are being made available on the digital infrastructure for knowledge sharing, that is the Diksha portal. Recently, we had a little session with an expert of our teachers where we were talking about creating those comic strips or the graphic novels. They are being created right from grade 1 to grade 12. So I would say,
Srishti, we will be coming back on the Diksha portal, so don't touch that.
Okay.
So I'll have your inputs as well. Yeah.
All right. So moving on, we are also talking about skill-based learning and why the skills need to be focused upon. So I would say NEP is rather focusing on the competency-based education, which is a combination of knowledge, skills, and attitudes that students need to develop and apply for successful learning. All this while we've been, talking about what is going to help them in the long run. That is learning to learn. So the skills, if a child, say for example, to get the language competency, the students are taught through the listening, speaking, reading, and writing skills. So that will help a child decode the written text, to comprehend the meaning of the written text also. So comprehension of the text will also determine their performance in the other subjects, right? So similarly, when the child is trying to organize the thoughts, we normally do it through graphic organizers. Even before the child can write, we say, okay, make a mind map of all the objects beginning with the sound L. Okay, so the child does that. So all this classification, sequencing through the story cards, what are we doing? We are teaching them different skills. So all these skills are going to form the basis of their learning. So we are already doing it. Now it's just being highlighted. And we've seen that it works, it does work. And talking in terms of assessment and evaluation, it is again very, very important because it's simply tracking our learners' progress so that appropriate interventions can be provided at the right time before the learning gaps become too wide. So when is the right time for intervention? Through enrichment, enhancement. So a lot of reflecting, reviewing, keeping a record of the child's progress, that is going to help us. And we'll be able to nip it in the bud, or we'll be able to bridge the gap at an early stage before it becomes too wide. And as we've all said already, NEP is just not talking about assessment of learning. It is talking about assessment for learning, that all the activities that the child participates in, share and express, rhyme recitation, drawing, everything can become a tool for evaluating or assessing the child. And also assessment as learning. Now we've of late started maintaining the e-portfolios of our children, which is like creating a lasting archive of the various accomplishments as they...
Srishti, wait. I have to stop you here because I want you to speak. No. Now, you said beautifully that light but tight structure. You spoke about those because your school is that progressive school where teacher understand assessment for learning, the various pedagogical jargons which you use, which a teacher of your school would understand. My problem here is, how would all your experiential and all your techniques, you're talking about something, that is why I stopped you and I wanted to now you to comment. You're talking about an e-portal, but here we are talking about the entire country. We are talking about Anganwadis, where last week Dr. Shaurya Kuttappa talked about such a sorry state of affairs of Anganwadis, and he said He was talking to a mom and she said, I really don't know what's an Anganwadi. And the level of teachers, and Ms. Santram just said that, for an elementary school, whoever she gets it, and because I'm sure in that where she is, then she has to put in a lot of effort and mentorship on the quality of teachers. So, what would be that bridging gap? You being an expert, I really don't want to listen what good thing. Of course, you're here because you're doing commendable things. And honestly, I've ticked on your so many taglines where you said standardization is the need of the hour and learning to learn. But I want you now to actually comment about how this is going to take place in tier 2 cities, in rural areas. That is the play. Yeah.
Sure.
Yes.
So I think there is no dearth of resources and all the educators are capable, but the need is to reach out to them and empower them through educating them in the use of the locally available resources. So what we did during the lockdown, we did not have any expertise, tools or the resources like what we use in our concept lab or activity studio. We could not make that available to our children. So what did we do? We used the easily available household resources. Even for quantification, we said, okay, bring whatever you have. Like the children were using beans or they were using whatever was available, their toys or even vegetables and fruits and whatnot. So leaves, pebbles, shells, all these things can be made use of to teach numeracy and literacy. And instead of e-portfolios, we can display the work of the children, whatever. Even if the child has created something out of clay, that can be put on display and we can label it that this particular child has done it. So there is no dearth of talent or there is no dearth of potential in the teachers. Yes, we need to empower them by educating them, by bringing their attention to these small little things that whatever is locally available, we can make the best use of it. We are encouraging our children to create so many things out of newspaper, like we did an online annual day where half of our props were created out of old newspapers. So, I mean, it is not that we are trying to be exuberant or over the board. We are trying to go and we are trying to just exploit the resources that are available. No, a lot of common sense needs to be applied here because the times are such, and depending on the local availability of whatever is there. But I think first and foremost, we need to educate, empower the educators, educate the educators. That is the need of the hour. We need to reach out to each and every educator, and I'm all in for it. I mean, I would love to take sessions for all those educators and empower them. They are really, really capable and they're so creative. So we just need to bring their attention to what they already have within. So it is.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Srishti. And it was, yes, exactly. This was what I wanted to take it out from you, because being an expert, and I'm sure so many of our viewers who are from tier 2, tier 3, because the kind of registrations we have, it's pan India. And I'm sure Ms. Srishti Bajaj would have addressed so many of your, issues, which you would, two things hold good, which she says that you need to look around. You don't have to go out and look for resources. So resources are available, as she gave the example of a clay or maybe a dough could be used for, harnessing the motor skills of the children.
I just want to give a small example here. Sorry if we have a time. Like when we were teaching the story of bread from farm to table, what did we tell our children? We said, okay, tell mama to give you some dough, bring some water. We actually made them make the dough. And we told them to bring the rolling pin and roll out a chapati. And some of the mothers were so enthusiastic that they took it to the kitchen and cooked it and brought it back to see the end product, So this is how we made use of the resources which were available at home. So anything and everything can be done.
Yeah. So to hit the bullseye, were two things important. One, that the lead has to be taken by the expert educators and handhold the educators who actually need that capacity building. to understand how this seamless transition will be taking. And two is where you really have to look around. You're an educator, so you need to look around that how well you can make use of community resources and the resources available around you. Thank you so much, Ms. Bajaj, for this such a brilliant answer. Moving on to, the discussion is getting so, engaging that there are so many things that we need to, kind of wrap up in about 30 minutes. Now, my next question is to Ms. Shritangana Santam. And later I would want probably Srishti to take that to you too, because you were talking about it. Now, yes, the Article 2.5 of the policy proposes, a 3-month preparatory course for students and access to digital content, where they have selected some content and they've created a ETB Diksha portal, which will call for a student-led peer learning, community tutoring, and to be ready to meet up to the level of class 3 or class 1 by the time they reach there. And so that there is a parity, I think that is what it is, that there is a parity maintained pan-India when it comes to the level. And so the policymakers do realize this gap that we are talking about, that yes, there is a great parity which exists, disparity which exists between urban areas and the rural areas, and in terms of children's understand foundational numeracy and literacy. Now, the whole idea of this Diksha portal looks, extremely hunky-dory, and it's fine. And I'm sure with Srishti's school, her teachers would be completely equipped with, and I'm sure she would have come up with some drawing, the comic strip books as well. But how will the implementation happen? How will you assess whether the child's literacy competencies are taken care of, and not forgetting, again and again I say, the demographic structure of the country? There is no clarity, or rather, I don't think so there is availability of, any text that would, empower us. So what are your suggestions and what is your take on that? Yes.
Yes, I would like to, go back to and start for your answer with where Ma'am Bajaj was just now talking about that, and where you sort of were talking to her that, we are concerned about how the tier 2, tier 3, and maybe even down to the Anganwadis are going to be working. So I'll start from there first, because we're talking pan-India. Now, what happens is that, it's really wonderful that, there are these progressive schools which are doing an amazing job. And I would consider that, they need to be actually the, take on the task of being the resources. Because like what ma'am said that, their school, their teachers are doing such a great job. Ma'am has got all the ability that and I agree with her. It's not just a question of, going overboard with resources. That is where the creativity of a teacher comes in. But the point is that how do you empower a teacher who hasn't had that exposure, who doesn't have that horizon to be able to understand that, yes, I can use these resources and make my child learn. The basic problem comes there. That is where, right now our problem is with this. So my first, suggestion, or like my thought process is that, in every area, and the NEP has talked about it, that in every area, we need to firstly handhold those schools, or maybe the Anganwadis, or the schools which are taking care of the, maybe the lower level, lower economic level children, or maybe a tier 1 city. A school can sort of, adopt a tier 2 level cities in the periphery, and, train their teachers to become capable and empower them that they are able to use this creative aspect of them. Like, I totally agree with ma'am. Each and every teacher is creative. There is no doubt about it. But at times they are not able to bring that creativity out. They don't know how to. Sometimes they are, when you give them an idea and they're like, oh, yes, this is something, I could have thought of. Why didn't I think of it? But the point is that, they need that empowerment. And having said that, Devani, one thing which, really upset me, I would say, in the NEP I was looking at, they talk about that, to train an Anganwadi educator, the NEP is talking in terms of a 6 months to a 1 year course. And whereas they're talking in terms of making a B.Ed for 4 years. Come on, how can you do that? You need the best empowered teacher for that Anganwadi. You need that best empowered teacher for the pre-primary. That is where then that gap comes in. Yes, we have agreed to the gap. There is a gap. But now if we handhold those schools, if we are able to handhold those teachers, if we are able to handhold and train those particular educators right from the beginning, I personally feel we won't even need that 3 months of gap filling. Because what at the end of the day, if we are doing a gap filling, that means we are accepting the fact that there is something wrong with our system and we will need to fill the gap. We need a 3 months of, sort of a module, sort of a refresher course or whatever you may call it. And we will need a 3 months module to bring, to see that the children are up to the level to come into the grade one level, which is required by the school. That means we are somewhere accepting the fact that we are still feeling that, the children who will come from maybe the Anganwadi or from a standalone play school might not still be able to cope with the formal education of class 1. One is my take is that. Secondly, I would say that yes, these apps are there. We are going to be creating for the children, these testing, places where we will have the benchmark. That is what basically the modules will do. There will be certain benchmarks and we will ensure that the child has reached that level. If the child hasn't, then that 3 month time with the community, coaching and with the peer mentoring and with the teachers hand-holding them, the refreshers, the reviewals, the remedials, all that is going to be done and taken care of to ensure that the gap is reduced. But again, for that, I feel that the teacher who will be doing that module needs to be a teacher who will be able to assess, as ma'am very rightly said just now, that whether she is assessing for knowledge or of knowledge, what is the teacher going to be assessing? Till we know that module of 3 months also, I feel, is not going to be very, very effective. That is my take on that.
I think very rightly said that, that's something which you really highlighted very well, because we've been talking about this, that the best need teachers and the most empowered teachers and the most patient teachers, because that's the first time the child is stepping out in the outside world, and they need to be the most matured and intellectually well evolved educators. And we're just giving them a time of 6 months to 1 year or 2 years. We did discuss in our last session. But having said that, I think, yes, the gap exists, because we have researchers which say that, and that is why we are deliberating on this, that about 5 crores of students do not even qualify and understand the basic foundational numeracy and literacy. And I think that analysis brought the policymakers to incorporate this. But yes, very well said. Thank you so much, Ms. Santram. This is moving on to now, this is the last of this round, questions to Dr. Sai. So, Dr. Sai, we see that the national education policy, when it comes to early childhood education and care, there's not too much of shift when it comes to, the structure, because structure would more or less, apart from the fact that, of course, they have expanded the age group and bring it down to 3 years, but it's the curricular that is actually, being trying to, they are trying to revisit, they are trying to revamp, because the identification is that somewhere something is not right. Somewhere the first 6 years, the investment in terms of energy and resources is not to that optimal level, which is the cause of the crisis in the education system later on. What, according to you, will be a well thought out plan for universalization and effective implementation? And then also, I was just talking when Ms. Santram was talking, I was just thinking that there are no regulatory, documents which can regulate a curriculum for such standalone, play schools. Jo ke shayad they are open in all the houses, and anybody and everybody qualifies to open a play school. They do a bit of marketing, and then the bigger schools, the formal schools, try and make those tie-ups and something. So shouldn't there be? We are talking and condemning so much the Anganwadi, the Anganwadis, that things are not right there. But what about these standalone school, playway schools, which are every house, and anybody who feels, as you rightly said, Ms. Santram, that बच्चा को तो पढ़ा ही लेंगे, ये अब संभाल ही लेंगे. She's a mother, so she is qualified to do. Yes, let's hear out what Dr. Sai has to say on that. Yes, Dr. Sai.
Yes, now talking about the standalone schools, but before that, before the Anganwadis or the pre-PAN, there are so many, I would say, the poorest or the hard to reach communities where they don't even have that facility. They are not even in an Anganwadi or a preschool. They don't have that education. I think it is those people that the policymakers will have to think of first. See, only when you have a strong foundation, a strong again a method that is in line, then can the implementation happen. So I think that also has to be done by the policymakers. How are they going to include the inaccessible areas? There are so many. I think even Ms. Srishti referred to that earlier. I mean, there are so many children who are either dropouts or some of them have not even entered. So that, I think, is one very important, crucial area that the government has to think of. Especially when you think of your SDH 2030. So bringing everyone. So when you're talking of equitable kind of learning and development, and where you talk about gender disparity and all that. So I think these inaccessible areas should be addressed first. Yes, there are in cities, of course. I don't know, especially here in Chennai, I have seen, I mean, every street almost, I think, kind of some of the areas, you have so many of these preschools. But what about the villages? I mean, we look at the construction workers. So I'm living here where there are about 2,200 flats here. So, I mean, the construction workers there, what they just have their children by their side. I mean, what education do they have? I mean, there are so many of these people. I think somehow we need to tap them. These children will have to be brought into this ambit of education, formal, early childhood education. So that is number one. First, before standardizing, first of all, try and see how we are going to bring in these people. Yes. Next, about standardizing is again going to be a real big problem, because each one has, there are so many methods of teaching itself. You have today different schools professing different types of teaching. So yes, apart from the CBSE, ICSE and the others, IB, all those curricula. Okay, so that is a little problematic. Yes, and so how they're going to, probably have one broad structure and then give them the leeway to work within that. I think that should be done. One more thing, I think this has already begun, because not only in Tamil Nadu, but I think if we look at all the award winners, national award winners, the teachers, and I think we had Mr. Ranjit Singh Desale from Sholapur in Maharashtra, the Global Teacher Prize winner. I mean, amazing to see the kind of work that he had done. So I think teachers have, they have started, they have a conscience. They feel that they have to do their bit for the society. They feel responsible enough, to their kids. I'm talking about their children in class. So they consider them, they are no less than the children in their homes for them. In fact, I think every teacher might agree. I think the kids at home are neglected, and the kids in the schools are the ones who are looked after more. Okay, better. So teachers are trying on their own. Governments also, as Ms. Shwetangana pointed out, the state governments, each state government, yes, they're trying. Government I think slowly we are midway, at least, I think, from that stage where we were, looking, disgustingly at, say, government schools. The people would look at it and, kind of, the kind of attitude that they had. I think that is not existing anymore, at least I think at least some of it is conquered, I would say. I think today we understand, and we have rank holders from government institutions. So teachers there are doing their bit. It is just that now with this policy framework, they will get that impetus to do better. I think so. They're going to be given more freedom. So this all these have started actually, and government schools are doing. And there was one teacher from Pondicherry that we came face to face with. Amazed. He's just in his 30s, early 30s. He's won the presidential award, and amazing to see all of his money, all of his income earning goes to the school. He paints the school. He kind of, has infrastructure built. He involved the whole village. And there was a time when he had to go and beg. The teachers of the school had to go and beg at doorsteps to enroll children to that school. And he was proudly saying last year he was telling us that people come with recommendations from chief minister and other ministers to get enrolled in the school. What a mammoth sea change that is. So I think teachers today, especially this pandemic, again, we see how well they've handled. So teachers, so when you're talking about this early childhood education, how it can be implemented. So the implementation has started, I would say. So teachers on their own, as well as, governments also have kind of instilled this in their minds that this has to be taken forward. Now, yes, it has become a national movement. So, I think that's a revolution kind of thing that's happening now. So with that, I'm sure that, everything and I was very happy that Ms. Srishti brought this. Yes, attitude also, values also. So it's not just about knowledge. Yes, vocational skills. Yes, that is also being taken care of. So I think they are encompassing everything that is necessary for a young individual, a young child to thrive. So I think that is what is best about this NEP. And schools, so when we're talking of either it could be Anganwadis or the play schools, whatever it is, yes, some sort of, we cannot leave them to function completely on their own. So there has to be some kind of a framework that has to be modeled. And within that framework, people can have the independence to work. And also later on, when they get into the primary sections, say first, second, or third classes, there also. So it is just that the government has to frame the right policy. And she was telling me that they have already started. They are well into it. It's yes, we've been reading a lot about NEP and the kind of material that is being shaped. And all.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Sai, for such insights. And you rightly said that the journey has begun, where you gave the example of a young educator of age 30 who is an award winner. Award is a separate thing, but who is putting in his entire money, energy, will, everything into trying to bring the necessary change. And standardized. And also we see that the way the state governments have in last 5 years, the way the state governments have started realizing the importance of education and importance of not just education, but purposeful education, not the education which was the British in the thought and curriculum, but an education which has a lot of out of the box potential. It helps, and that is why the buzzwords of the 4 C's, they have started realizing how important the critical thinking, problem solving, collaboration, these skills are the life skills. And that is what is being, talked about. And probably that's the reason the way the NEP has come up in the document. It is not just a document, I would say, a policy of any government. It is a policy of endless hours of brainstorming and experiences of the ace academicians who have observed, analyzed the society, and have come up with the right kind of solutions. And yes, as our Prime Minister said, that India will definitely be a vibrant knowledge hub. Coming to the end of this session, but we have n number of questions from I'm very happy to see, because my phone is completely full with the kind of questions that I'm having. So last 10 minutes devoted to the Q&A, to the questions by our audience. So the first question is by Mr. Amit Tiwari, and the question is addressed to Ms. Santram. What are the basic strategies to improve the quality of elementary education? And considering we would like to take as many questions, so not more than 1 minute, just encapsulate your answers. Yes, I have to say that, and because I want to incorporate as many questions. So very quickly, what are those strategies? Yes, Ms. Santram.
Yes, so very quickly for Mr. Tiwari, nice question. Yes, because we can talk a lot, but we need to have some strategies in place. That is very important for action. What I feel is that the strategies that are required right now is that we have to now shift our focus to the implementation part of it, which, as even our HRD minister said, that we are now in the starting the implementation part of it. The implementation of the policy has to start, because till we understand, implement anything, we are not going to be able to even get any kind of feedback. So the strategy right now, which we need to implement, is that, ensure that your teacher is fully equipped with, firstly, the knowledge of the NEP, what the NEP is expecting of them, where they are expected to take the children. Try to understand the resources that are available to you, which can ensure that you are able to meet that basic requirement that has been put out in front of you by the NEP and the policy makers. And then as management and as principals and as headmistresses, it is our responsibility to then ensure that we handhold those teachers so that they are able to implement that in the classroom. Today, the classroom has, of course, moved to the online, but whichever methodology it may be, we have to ensure that we are able to put that into work, because unless it starts working, we are not going to be able to get any kind of feedbacks there. So that is how I would say that the strategy has to move. Start by understanding the policy, then start empowering the person who's most important, the stakeholders, which will also include the parents, and then move on to the actual using that particular knowledge in your classrooms. That is how I would like to move ahead with it.
Excellent, excellent. Understanding the policy, empowering the stakeholders, and then getting prepared and moving into the classrooms. Excellent answer. Moving on to the next, Ms. Amarjeet Kaur, there's a question, and this question is, we'll address it to Ms. Srishti. In metropolitan cities, the demography of student is definitely varied, and they haul from all over, as if we look at the scenario of Gurgaon. So Gurgaon schools have a demographic structure where the students come from all over India. So how can mother tongue be effective? We did delve over it, but once again, let's just hear it out from Ms. Srishti Bedar. Yes.
Yeah. So I think I already answered that question, where I said it has to be the bilingual approach right from the beginning. So as I said, like when we are giving instructions to our children in English and we look at their blank faces, we have to quickly switch to Hindi. So that is the second language that we use normally in schools like Gurgaon or the metropolitan cities. So I think that is the key, using a bilingual mode of instruction. So yeah. I think that is
Ms. Srishti gave a very beautiful answer, and I was very impressed with her answer, which I did write, from mother tongue based bilingual methodology. So it was such a hit answer that I'm sure Ms. So my next question is for Dr. Vinita Sai. And the educator says students have different pace of learning in terms of their motor skills. And presently in some schools, they are being pressurized to write when they were not even willing to write. Writing should basically start from age 5. So what do you think, Dr. Sai, that when should writing begin? What should be the sequence of seeing, experiencing, writing? Yes, to you, Dr. Sai. 1 minute.
Yes. Now, every child is unique. Yes. So they are different. But I think, see, writing also, I mean, we've seen babies, even children, very young children, you know, they start scribbling and doing. So we need not give that, you know, saying that, I mean, write A or write or whatever. No, let them just sit and do something, you know, that is also some kind of writing, you know, it could be, you know, babbling in its own, whatever it is, you know, it could be some mumbo jumbo, whatever. But then something is happening and it will set the pace for, you know, development later. So I think a student should be allowed to first give vent to whatever, you know, they want, and slowly we can, you know, make it structured. So initially, no, we should not force. I don't think we can just, you know, hold the hand and say, write this, write that. No, I don't think that should ever happen. So just make them do some coloring or just draw whatever they want. It could be anything. So they start that way. So it's fun, first fun. So I think from fun, it has to then move on to some kind of meaningful learning. So from, I think that.
Can I add one point here, Divyani, if the time allows? Just one.
There is another. Yes, please. The other question I was wanting to address to you too. You only.
Little,
yes.
Because here, I think when it comes to writing, and we are trying to teach how to write to the child. So first thing is we need to work on his pencil grip. So, I mean, doing those fine muscle coordination activities. And also, I think somewhere the kinesthetic tactile sense of the child is underutilized here. We try and show the formation, we try and say the sound, but we don't make the child feel the formation. So the use of the tactile cards or simply tracing the letter or the formation, even for that matter, the shapes or the strokes on the arm of the child. So the kinesthetic tactile sense, if it is used more, it will be easier. One, we need to work on the pencil grip, and then automatically things would flow in. I think kinesthetic tactile sense is something which is underutilized. So those tactile cards, those tracing things, rainbow tracings, all those things need to be done with the children more to encourage them. Because even when we begin with writing, many children are not wanting to write. So they can sand trace, they can rainbow trace, they can use the tactile cards, they can simply put the stick stones on a formation of a letter or a number. So there are so many different ways to encourage them to understand the formation, may not come to the writing straight away. Yeah, so just wanted to add.
Yeah, so I think that is so brilliant. And Ms. Srishti Bajaj has given so many techniques, and all the viewers, all the educators who are joining from distant part of the country, they would have benefited. One question by Ms. Vidhi Duggal. Again, I would like to address to you, Ms. Srishti. This is that because this becomes very important. We've been talking about assessment, and we've been talking so much about how would that happen in earlier. What is more important, evaluation or reflection? How, yeah, but briefly. Yeah.
I would say reflection is a part of evaluation, right? It is not separate from evaluation, because it says we are tracking the learner's progress, right? So that the appropriate interventions can be provided. So all the time reflecting and reviewing what the child was able of doing before and what the child can do now. So we take a pause, and at every point we are reflecting. At every milestone that the child is achieving, we are pausing, we are reflecting, evaluating, and then moving forward. So I would say both are equally important. Both go hand in hand, reflection, is a part of evaluation. We pause and reflect and rethink and reevaluate and then move forward and provide the necessary interventions accordingly. So reflection is a part of evaluation. It's not separate.
Great. Great. I think this is a great insight when it comes to early childhood, because for an educator of elementary education, it is very important to understand that reflection is also a part of evaluation and you don't need a separate segment. Again, there is a question which we have addressed, but Mr. Arun Varhapande has this question is from him, and I address it to Ms. Santram. Since we are talking about early childhood education, can we not reduce the stress on written language and books? And here we are also talking about certain textbooks that would be introduced in the elementary, the pre-primary stage. Yes, Ms. Santram.
See, ma'am, as it is, the policy talks about that the first 3 years of the 5 years of the ECCE are not actually supposed to have textbooks. We talk about textbooks, light textbooks, that's the word used in the NEP, are to be introduced in grades 1 and 2. So the pre-primary level is actually, again, going to be an area where there's going to be a structure that, yes, we will probably have benchmarks that, the child should be, by the end of the year, the child should have these achievable aspects that will be marked out. And how those are achieved, that will be, it could be workbooks, it could be some, other methodology that the teachers can use to evaluate them. They can make them do some kind of drawings and some kind of performances. It can be some kind of workbooks, but there's not going to be any specified textbooks for the pre-primary. The light textbooks are only going to be introduced in grades 1 and 2. So I don't think, there is any burden of children with books at that age that is going to come up. That is going to be the case. I know we're very short on time. I would love to speak a lot on that, but I can see your face. That is it. So I'm just cutting it short there. Yeah. Yeah.
One very, very pertinent question, and I think all of you can address it very briefly, because that is the pain area of every educator who's in the elementary education. ECCE, this is by Miss Neena Singh. ECC are paid very less as compared to the middle and senior classes, whereas they are doing the real working on the foundational level. Whereas in West, the focus is more on ECC and there are highly qualified staff. Don't you think they should be paid at par with the other teachers? Very quickly, and then a recommendation as well for all the ECCE educators. Yes, we start from you, Ms. Santram. Yeah.
I totally agree with what ma'am has said, the person who's asked the question. That is sadly the truth that is there. We can't run from that. But I think that the change can only come firstly from the society. You ask any teacher that, if somebody asks you that, okay, you're a teacher in the school, what grade do you teach? A lot of teachers still, I'm not saying everyone, but a lot of teachers still have that inhibition to claim that I'm a pre-primary teacher. They come and even tell the managements, when are you going to promote me to a higher class? Because when I tell people that I'm a pre-primary teacher, they don't like it. They look at me, like, oh, achha, that is all that you do. That's what. So the first change that has to come will have to come from the importance that as parents and as society we give to that teacher of the ECCE level. Because it's a fact. I firmly believe that they are the most important teachers of the school. Because if the pre-primary, my concept in school is if the pre-primary and the senior secondary it has the best teachers, middle school will take care of it itself. That is how I feel. So
very well summed up. I think excellent answer. And yes, would like to add one point to you that the educators need to have self-respect and respect their own profession. And okay, now to Ms. Srishti, putting you in a very tight spot, because whatever you say, your teachers are going to come to you. Let's hear it out from you.
Yes, ma'am. I think the change has already begun, and it is your conviction, how much conviction and passion you carry about your profession. Because I can take my own example. I started with a play school with a meager salary of 700 rupees. And today where I am because of the passion, because I did not give up. I persevered. I tried to give my 200%. So that is how the sky is the limit, like you can grow. And it is not always true. I would say some of the progressive schools like ours have started recognizing, and they are giving an equally good start to these teachers, and rest is up to them to grow. What kind of work they do, what kind of investment they make in terms of their time, energy, capacity building. So a lot of factors will go into that. So the good news is that the government is also recognizing the importance of it. And there's a lot of talk about early childhood care and education, and they've been focusing. So the time is not far. I would say, let's not give up hope. Let's be very, very optimistic. Yes, the scenario needs to change, but the change has already begun. That's what I would like to say.
Yeah. Great. So anyways, you all have also answered my summing up question, but still 30 seconds. Now, one suggestion which you would want to give to the young educators. Yes, Srishti, 30 seconds.
Okay.
One suggestion.
That's very tight. I want to say a lot. So first and foremost, a lot of love, care, and compassion, and the quest for learning. Keep yourself abreast with the latest. So much is happening. So technology is what you need to get the hang of. Growth mindset. And finally, I would say the passion. See, if teaching young children is not your passion, then make it your passion. If that is not possible, then I think you really need to think whether you are in the right profession or not. So passion is something, till you don't carry that, you will not be able to make a mark. And unconditional love and caring and that compassion.
Right.
I think.
Yeah, thank you. Which means if you can't bear the heat, then get out of the kitchen. Yes, Ms. Santram, what you have to give? One message to the young educators.
I think Ma'am Bajaj has summed it up beautifully. So, but all I will also just add to it that love this work, because the love that you're going to get in return from that age group, nothing can match that. So love that work and respect it. And if you can do that, then I think you will end up being the best teacher. That passion that you can see in Ma'am Bajaj is what you require from every ECCE teacher. That is what I would say.
Well said, well said. Yes, Dr. Sahar, what is your message to our young educators?
Okay, actually both of them. So to just say something different, because those are also very important. I think MasterChef is very, very popular kind of show. I don't watch TV, let me confess that, but I know that it is popular. So I would say that, a good cook, you should know how to use all the ingredients. So there are so many ingredients available, but then only if you know the right dose of everything, putting in the balance, achieving the balance, and then again, how you show it, again, the creative aspect of it. And so how it is made, it should not just be palatable, but it should also be very interesting, motivating, and all that kind of thing. Something that allures children, because they love that. So I think, so like a master chef, so you own that place. I mean, you are the kings or queens of the classroom then. So you can take it on, I think, and then the world is yours. So you just, and as they said, have the confidence and love and all that. Oodles of love, yes, and you'll get back more, I would say.
Very well said. And I think the last but not the least, the last summing line was excellent by Dr. Sahar when she said that it has to be the right ingredient in the right amount. And since there are no set recipes, so you have to create your own recipe. And the recipe will only become a good recipe if there is a lot of passion, which I used to call passion ka tadka bahut zaruri hai agar aap ek achhe chef banna chahte hain. So that is it. Coming to the end of this session, and I think the last 2 episodes have been really insightful, and we left no stone unturned where we did not discuss any aspect of the early childhood education and care. We had always an excellent panel which gave a lot of their passion, their insights to it. Now, the next few sessions will be completely different from early childhood care and education. We will be moving on to higher ed. So educators, educators, management, parents, and students, we will range the next few episodes from senior secondary to higher ed, how seamlessly you can transition from your 11 and 12 to your higher college. So we come to this beautiful session. Thank you so much, our esteemed panelists. And once again, I was very happy to have such an empowered panel of women and who really are acclaimed in their own fields. Thank you so much. And we come to this end of this session. Stay tuned for the next episode of Decoding National Education Policy 2020. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.